Hello, this is Steven Nojiri, and this is another Tada Genji tradition video. In this video, we are going to take a look at the kabuto, the helmet, again. But this time, we're going to focus on the ornamentation of the kabuto. In previous video, we discussed the basic idea of the kabuto with some of the basic shapes and basic patterns, colors, things like that. But this video, we're going to focus on the Tatemono, or you could also use the word Maedate. So if you look at your screen, you'll see the word, you'll see the kanji. So this is what we're focusing on. This is your vocabulary for this video. So Tatemono can refer to anything that rises off the kabuto as any sort of ornament, but it often refers to the Maedate. So the Maedate is the front Tatemono. And you'll see also that you can even say Tatemono or Maedate. So you have Tatemono or Maedate, but you can also see Tatemono, etc., etc. So the point is that the tate or the Tatemono is the ornament, and Mai means in the front. So the Maedate is usually some sort of horn or creature's face or some kind of clan crest or some kind of statue or something. It's an ornamentation on the front of the kabuto. We're going to take a general look at the concept of the Maedate, and then, briefly we'll go over some specific Genji. Okay, so if you look at the image on the screen, we're starting off with a very sort of standard, stereotypical commander helmet, so to speak. And in there you will see that, and this text actually uses Tatemono. So remember I said it could be Maedate or Tatemono. Well, this actually uses Tatemono. So, but in the end it's referring to the ornamentation of the front of the kabuto. The first purple arrow is pointing to the kanji, stating that this is the dragon head or the dragon captain, dragon commander. The interpretation of how to read that is a little, we could go on about that, but basically it refers to this dragon head ornament that is worn on a commander's helmet. And the second purple arrow was pointing to the actual, and what that is that's basically like a statue of a dragon or a dragon's head. Either way, it can either be an entire dragon or it can be just the dragon's head, but either way it's like a statue that is on the front of the kabuto. And there's also these horns. Now these horns are known as kuwagata, and the name kuwagata literally means hoe shaped, like plow shaped or hoe shaped. Some people oftentimes say this sort of the beetle shaped, but the it the it can be called stag beetle horns, but more correctly it's kuwagata, which refers to plow or to a hoe as a like a farming the farming plow, farmer's plow shape. So, but what you are looking for in this picture is the fact that this helmet has on the front of the helmet, you've got the visor there, but right above the visor on the where the forehead is, you have some kind of horns and you have some kind of little statue. Now where that dragon's head is could be a statue of a Buddha, a statue of another animal or another sort of creature. It could be a clan crest, things like that. And we'll go into more detail. Now let's take a moment to also look at different types of ornaments that can be on the helmet. So far we're just looking at the one on the front of the helmet. But if you look at where these arrows are pointing, we'll start with the arrows, the ornament on the back. So if you look at that arrow, you can see you can have ornamentation on the back of the helmet. And you can have ornamentation on the top of the helmet, coming out right center of the helmet. Could be some ornamentation. It's usually some kind of plant or feather in that case. Even though there are some instances where people will put little statues on the very top of the helmet as well. The ornament on the front, that's the Maedate. And in this picture, that helmet's got a little gold disc as the Maedate. And then the ornament on the side. So the side ornaments, this is usually where you find antlers or horns or things like that. So it's A kabuto theoretically could have one of each of these, but you know, usually they'll have one or two. I can't think of a helmet that I'm aware of that I've seen that has all of them on there. It's possible, of course, but usually, they'll either have, like in this red helmet, it has horns on the side and it has a Tatemono in the back, and then this other one over here has a Maedate disc in the front, and then it's got these sort of plant ornamentation coming out the top. But you should be aware that the Kabuto can have these four Tatemono. Now, if you remember from the Kabuto video, we talked about stars, which the stars of a Kabuto are these sort of rivets, these studs. And then we also talked about the directional patterns, which is the alternating colorations of the helmet. So in the top picture, you can see the alternating black and white. That's what we mean by the sort of the directional pattern. And then on the picture on the bottom, you can see that there's alternating colors, but you also see the studs, the rivets, those are the stars. And then at the very apex of the helmet, the top of it, you have the Hachimanzar, the seat of Hachiman. So if you remember from the Kabuto video, you're seeing pictures of that now in more detail. But for this slide, what we want to talk about is these horns, so the kuwagata. They don't attach to the kabuto directly. It's not like the horns go right on. What you actually have is you have a bracket, and the bracket is attached to the helmet. The bracket is attached to the front of the kabuto, and then the horns are actually attached to the into the bracket. And I'm going to show you pictures of that in more detail. But the so there could be various shapes of the Maedate, and but the Genji favors the Kuwagata, the plow-shaped horns. So you're going to see lots of pictures of plow-shaped or the Kuwagata horns, because that's the big thing for Genji. But as you see in the bottom picture, you can see, so on the left you see this very decorative sort of creature face. Then that is in that creature over there is has a symbolic meaning, but we won't go into that per se at this time. Maybe in a future video we'll talk more about the details of the specifics. But in this particular case, any symbolic sort of design or symbolic creature. But again, that is the bracket, and then you see I drew an arrow to the side view of the kabuto. That is what's attached to the front of the kabuto. That bracket is attached to the front. Uh, it can be, like I said, it can be plain, it can be decorative, depends on user tradition, animal faces or some kind of monster or some kind of mythical creature or symbolic, designs, etc. But but this is the first part. You need to understand how the kabuto comes together with the different parts, the different directional patterns, the studs, the different parts, etc. And understand that the bracket is what attaches. So the ornamentation doesn't bolt on, it doesn't attach directly to the kabuto. You actually have these brackets, then the ornamentations go onto or into the brackets. So now in this panel, let's look at this. So the bracket can be simple and only contain places for the horns to be attached, such as in this example to the left. We see this flower decoration and the bracket. So that's the bracket, a little flower decoration. There's no additional stem to attach clan crest or further statues or decorations. But if you look on the bottom, you'll see so where this arrow's pointing, so you'll see this bracket, it has a Buddhist inspired design, Dharma wheel on the bottom, but it has this upward stem attached to the bracket. And that upward stem is what you can then attach a clan crest or other ornament like the dragon's head or the dragon or a statue of a Buddha or a plaque with some kind of a seed syllable, Buddha seed syllable on it or something like that. So take a minute to look at those pictures and get that into your mind. And on this slide, you're going to see so many different variations of the Kuwagata. Again, this is the preferred Maedate for the Genji. So if you're going to study Genji traditions, specifically Tada Genji traditions, or maybe OA Genji traditions, whichever, um, it's the Kuwagata. That's what you're shooting for. But not all Kuwagata are the same. Some are, very slender and point up at an angle. Some are very wide and curve. So as you can see, there's just some examples of Kuwagata, and notice, that they come in different variations, but the basic shape is the same, but there are many variations in angle and curvature and thickness and things like that. And on this slide, what I want you to do is see that on the left side we have a very ornate bracket, and the bracket, and there's a relationship with the bracket and the visor of the kabuto. As you can see on this picture, that it can make a little bit more sense about how the bracket sort of interacts with the visor pieces. um, but you see it's very ornate, and it has the stem for additional statue or crest. And then on the right you can see the design where, all right, well, there's the part with the visor, and there's the bracket, and then you see these very straight, very slender kuwagata that attach in. And you could say, okay, so this is the same kuwagata, but the horns aren't super curved or super fat. This is a more slender, more angular version. So now let's look at an example that I'm just happy to present this, because this is such a typical Genji helmet. Like, this is a proper Tada Genji helmet. If you study Tada Genji and you want to, find an antique helmet, you need to find one like this. Or if you're going to, have one built for you, it needs to look like this, right? So this is a very proper Genji helmet. So it has, and you can even see the kanji on here. So four directions. So that is the four direction pattern, white. Remember, in Genji, white can be white. It can also be silver. It doesn't matter. It's kind of interchangeable, white, silver. Um, so you have that, and you have the stars with the studs. So you have that. You can see this picture. You can see the Hachiman seat. You can see the stars. You can see the four direction pattern. The helmet's black, but then on the four directions you've got the white, and then you can see the Maedate shape. You can see the bracket, and then we also have the four direction panels with the three pattern in front. So follow the lines, and on the bottom left you can see the bracket, and then follow the red line up to the front of the helmet. Okay, so this is where the bracket, as we know, the bracket attaches to the front. It's where the bracket goes. Now this helmet doesn't have the additional stem for clan crest, and the reason is because this particular helmet is actually a historical helmet. This is there's a famous Genji warrior named Genji Hachimantaro, and so this is Genji Hachimantaro's helmet. So there's no real need for him to have the additional Maedate showing a clan crest, because just by the design, and everybody, basically everybody knows that he's Genji, so there's no real reason to fly an additional crest. But um, you can also see, so then the red connects to the bracket in the front, as you know, and then if you see the yellow, you know that the kuwagata go into the bracket there. And then if you look at the blue in the four direction pattern, you can see that there's the lines with the stars with the rivets on the right, the left, and the back. But the one in the front, if you look all the way to the right, you'll see the one on the front has three lines, and that's the one that goes down in the front. And that's a very, again, that's a very Genji thing. That now, these things of course became standardized over time, and so lots of people who don't even care about any Genji connection started using a lot of these patterns. But um, at the time, this helmet was very, very Genji. Again, Genji Hachimantaro's helmet, just symbolically speaking, if you know what you're looking at, you can say you just know instantly this thing's decked out in Genji decoration. So just the style of the style of the kabuto changes on time, clan, tradition, etc., etc., etc. Um, but just as this changes, so does the type of the Maedate, really, and the various meanings. In most cases, the Maedate, it signals clan affiliation either by the overall design or specific crest that may appear on there. There may be religious meaning, Buddhist, Shinto, etc., potentially Taoist, included in the design. The horns, whether you have like kuwagata in the front or you have deer antlers on the side or like water buffalo shaped horns on the side, these usually denote some kind of tradition or family or clan. Um, or, if they may, or it just may be something very specific to that individual. But all of these ornamentations mean something either, some tradition, some clan, or some very deep, significant decoration for the individual user. However, it should also be noted that the Tatemono can also be used for like rank and file procedure, or rank representation, placement representation, job representations. So one has to be careful when doing their research. So depending on the place and time, the tatemono, and I mentioned this in the kabuto video, the details of the kabuto might actually have to be altered or edited based on time and place, because depending on who's in charge of a force, what, again, time and place, the way that the kabuto is decorated will actually be, there'll be rules and specs about it based on the army that you're part of. Also, so it's some schools, like some gungaku, some military academies, they have rules about who can wear what on their kabuto. And anyway, but for all of this information, you have to actually look at the rules of that military academy, that gungaku school, or you have to look at the sort of rules of that particular daimyo and his army to figure out, what is, what, if any, rules are there about how the kabutos can be decorated. But in terms of traditions, though, like for the Tada Genji, the basic pattern, like I said in the previous video, is a four-direction starred kabuto with a kuwagata maedate. And then the bracket can have the additional stem to allow for further decoration, such as Buddhist or Shinto. Sorry guys, I misspelled Shinto on the slide. Buddhist or Shinto symbols or clan crest, things like that. Um, and that also brings me up to there's some other documents that, remember I showed you the picture of the dragon. So later on, when you get into the 1600s, there's some documents that sort of teach or imply that only the top commanders should ever wear a dragon as part of their Maedate. However, that tradition is not, that's not in stone. That's not a definite tradition. That seems to be something that came about in the 1600s. But it's a great example though about how place and time, you know, place and time will sort of dictate what you can, what the meanings of certain things are. There's also some traditions in the 1600s that sort of speak that, oh, only the commander should wear kuwagata, the horns, the plow horns. However, that again is a 1600s sort of concept. From the Tada Genji perspective, you should, it doesn't matter if you're the commander or not, you should have a four direction starred kabuto with kuwagata maedate. Now, before we close this video, let's just take a quick look at a document that talks about Genji Yoshitsune's kabuto. I know a lot of you guys like Genji Yoshitsune, so let's take a look at that. And that's not really Tada Genji. The Yoshitsune, we made a video about how the Tada Genji sort of has a little overlap with Yoshitsune tradition. So just for fun, let's look at that. Okay, so let's end the video with this. This document is basically called a record of Genji Yoshitsune's armor in annotations, and this section here lists out details of the armor. There's no pictures in this document. It's just a list of different, again, annotations or quick notes about it. So that's what we're going to look at. And in the red, we see a confirmation that it is a four-directioned patterned helmet. And in the yellow, we see that it coming down from the Hachimanza in the four directions is the three pattern, the drop. So we looked at that earlier, and I've also put a picture of that panel, so maybe you can remember that from earlier in the video. So that's four directions are, and the orange confirms that the four direction is orange, right? Or sorry, is the orange confirms that the four directions are white. So we have black armor with white in the four directions, and in the four directions you have these dropping patterns. So that's all confirmed by this document. Like I said, even though there's some variation of the helmets, one of the variations is, for example, the Maedate in the front. There seems to be some discrepancy between some accounts say that the bracket for the Maedate was a lion, was a pattern of a lion, and then which you know as like the lions that guard temples. The they're oftentimes called foo dogs, but really, they're shishi, they're lion, and they're lions. And then there's another version that actually says that the lion was a statue on the helmet. So some versions say the bracket had a lion pattern, and some say, oh no, there's a lion statue on the helmet. There's another Tatemono of a lion on the helmet. And then, but what we can see over here, though, in blue, when it talks about the Tatemono, it does say that the Tatemono uses Kuwagata. So, in this particular case, we can confirm, in keeping with Genji tradition, that it has the plow-shaped Kuwagata. So, it's a four-direction helmet. It's got the three drops, Kuwagata Maedate. So, it's pretty standard Genji. Now, I can tell you, if you remember earlier in the video, there was a picture of the very thin, angular Kuwagata. So there's other accounts of Yoshitsune's helmet, which says that his Kuwagata were not big, fat, and curved, that they were the thin, angular Kuwagata that you saw earlier in the video. And all right, that about wraps it up. And that is it for this video. As always, these videos are meant to be brief, and they are meant to inspire you or to give you a starting off point. The material in this video is copywritten by me, so please do not steal this material. Please do not take it. Please do not copy it. Again, I hope it inspires you. I hope that it sets you off on your own investigations and explorations, but please be respectful.